Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. And I'm here today finishing up my thoughts about Ephesians. I have today and tomorrow to complete my short lookings at this book. And I hope it's been helpful to you. I hope you'll read the whole book, many verses I left out, and think about this incredible book that God has given to you and me. So today I want to read the last verse of chapter 4 and the first couple verses of chapter 5. And here's what it says. Verse 32 in chapter 4 beginning. Be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. Imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Jesus. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, making us a pleasing aroma to God. Well, let me start with the last part there, a pleasing aroma. A few weeks ago, let me back up. Our church has breakfast every Sunday morning for anyone who wants to come. It rotates who does it. Sometimes it's a full breakfast with more than you could even ever think of eating. And sometimes it's just a smaller amount. Depends on which group's doing what. We're not in competition to outdo anybody. And we just use it as a time for fellowship and get people together and that sort of thing. So the other day we had our breakfast, and whoever was fixing it, I forget now, but I'll say through here, it was really good. Had bacon. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever someone cooks a lot of bacon, that aroma goes everywhere. And when I walked into the church beforehand, I could smell that bacon, that aroma. And it was like, oh, wow, this thing's going to be all the morning long. How's anybody going to listen to me when they're smelling bacon? It was just this this sense of wonder and amazement that just overcomes everything, fills every niche and cranny in the building, and really people ate a lot of it. Well, Paul's saying here that we, if we do what he's talking about, and we'll get back to that, but if we really want to live with the Lord, then that creates a pleasing aroma to God's nose. Now, I know he doesn't have physical characteristics, but the imagery is there. We become a pleasing aroma, someone that God wants to have around him. Do you ever think about that? God wants you to be around him? Yeah, I mean, he really does. And even if you've never thought about it before, he still wants you. So it goes on here and talks about how we should be. It starts out by saying, be kind to each other. Now, you would think that's a pretty simple thing to do, but it isn't. It isn't because we live in a world that's a fallen world. And in this fallen world, people do unkind things all the time, all around us. And when it happens to us, for most, our first thought is not a kind response to them. And some people hold those ungracious feelings for their whole lives. And everything they do, there's this thorn that keeps stabbing them. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted. You ever see any of those videos of those animals, the vicious animals that are caught in traps, and people are trying to get them out, or some animal gets stuck in something and they're trying to get them out? Those folks are tender-hearted towards that animal. They're going to take a lot of risks. They're gonna they're gonna do some strange things that they never would think about doing in order to save that animal. I saw one once where a baby elephant fell down into a pit of mud, and it took people 3 days to get the baby elephant out. All the time, the whole herd of elephants were standing around watching, and everybody knew at any moment in time they could be trampled by those, but they still had concern for that baby elephant, and they were kind and tender-hearted. And that's what God wants you and me to be towards everybody that we meet. He goes on to say, forgiving one another. I don't know how you can claim to be a Christian and harbor unforgiveness. Now, let me back up and say, as a human being, sometimes it's really hard to forgive. I'm not saying it's easy, but what I'm saying is, how can you miss that essential component of Jesus' life and teaching about forgiving? And how can we expect God to forgive us if we don't forgive other folks? I mean, it's incongruent to me that you could be a Christian or call yourself one and go around with unforgiveness. At least be trying to forgive. And sometimes I guess it takes a long time. It has for me in some situations. But then it goes on to say, being kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving, and then to imitate God. Be like God. Be Jesus to the world that you encounter. Less and less people around you know about the compassion of God. All the research shows that. And the only way some people will ever know about Jesus is how you demonstrate being a Christian. Imitate God. Be the example of Jesus to those that you meet. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. Okay? Not much in life that's easy is really worth a whole lot. But it is what God wants us to do. And I hope you'll jump on the bandwagon and head off into the sunset being like Jesus. Well, thanks for listening. If you have a need or a concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can do as fast as we can to help meet your need. Thanks for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with one last thought on this book of Ephesians. Take care. I'll talk to you again.